dollars mean with an interesting $6 trillion return at least. When you think about the one, the prison industrial complex, for example, they spent $10 million on legislation, and they make billions and billions of dollars in return on the housing situations they put up, prisons. So little bits of money get great gain when you're buying politicians. There's no real direct correlation between how much you pay and how much you get. If you can influence a legislator or a group of legislators to do something that disempowers the poor, middle class, or the taxpayers' dollars in general, then you can get tremendous return. So $6 billion could be $6 trillion that they're looking for out of money mint, or because I guess 12 out of 11 out of 12 of those dollars were spent with Big Promise. We're talking about special interest dollars. So that's what it means to me.
That's correct. David, in the interest of giving the audience a quick overview, I know a lot of you know a bit about Get Money Out of Politics and about what's happening in the electoral cycle, but how do we create and build the alternatives? Give us a brief education on what's stopping us and what's out there.
Okay. We live in such an exciting time because there's a political awakening happening throughout the country and throughout the world. The internet has brought about such an evolution in consciousness, in global consciousness, political consciousness. And people realize that what we have right now, our current system of rule, is obsolete. And there's amazing alternatives that are being developed. Alternative energy, alternative education, alternative media, you name it. There are new, amazing, effective alternatives out there, but they're not reaching a critical mass. They're not being allowed to follow an organic process of growing the culture, growing us as a species, not to sound too grandiose. But when you look at it and you say, why aren't these things taking off? It comes down to money in politics. You know, I do a bunch of speaking events, and the one thing that I dislike speaking about the most is money in politics. You know, it's sexy to talk about all the alternatives and all the new exciting things that people are doing. But, you know, money in politics is the root of what is holding us back as a society. And
I want to cut it off. I have to say something about David. What's important about the effort that he led, which was that inspired Occupy Wall Street, and Occupy as we did around the world. With that, the ideas of economic inequality were not on the radar, but then the minute he started that process, that was all that we talked about. And there was a moment that people recognized at the core, as he suggested, of almost everything that disempowers the middle class or locks out the innovation he's referring to, is this money. So I just want to say that that is something about that Occupy, this consciousness that's being lifted, would take so much longer. But he took a giant step for all of us, and I want to applaud him for what he did with Occupy.
I'm sure a lot of people here are involved in Occupy LA, right? I mean, it was such an amazing process that just took over. I also want to return the favor, you know, Russell could be in St. Bart's right now with a bunch of models, but he's not, all right? He's here talking about getting money out of politics. So I give major props and respect for that.
I'll be there in a few weeks.
All right. Let me jump to Michael. So as I think many of you know, Michael is one of the founders of the Green Party. Let's give it up. So Michael, more than anybody here today, you can speak to what it's like for a third party to try to fight its way into the spotlight in the current circumstance. Tell us about the Green Party experience, etc.
So the Green Party is in about 100 countries around the world, so we've had a real experience to see how it's different here than anywhere else, and we have one of the worst electoral systems on the planet, because not only do we have a single member district system, which is problematic, but then it's corporate funded. So together, it's the worst. Green Party doesn't take any corporate donations, so as a result, we don't have any money. So when you look at the call for getting money out of politics and you talk about public financing, what countries do around the rest of the world is not only do they fund candidates, but they actually fund parties. So political parties can be internally democratic. Now, the argument made against public financing in the United States is, oh, we don't want to give all that money to politicians. We're not giving money to politicians. What we're doing with the public money is ensuring that every voice that's on the ballot is heard by the voters, not just the few people who have money to make sure that those voices are heard. That's the fundamental difference. Second, and what the get money out of politics usually misses, is that our electoral system, by having single seat, winner-take-all districts, you have to win a majority. It takes more money to win a majority in a single seat district than the alternative. What's the alternative? Most of the rest of the world does a system called proportional representation, where you have a multi-seat district, and if a party gets 20% of the vote, they get 20% of the seats. That means you can campaign honestly to people who agree with you, and you don't need to spend as much money to bullshit people and try to convince them that you stand for things that you don't. So we need both to happen in this country. Money out of politics, public financing, and proportional representation.